Have you ever visited an African home or visited a home and you hear the way the children talk and the way they act and behave, and you're like, is there a parent in this house? The reason is because sometimes you find children that are very disrespectful in homes and they lack basic ethics. The reason is because most parents nowadays are people that have not been parented before. So you might live in a house with your father and your mother, but don't necessarily mean that you're being parented. My name is Rafa Godlove. This is School of Life. It's a program where I try to teach life lessons in a way that is easy to understand. Today, I want to talk about basic ethics in an African home. Basic ethics, the way you raise children, just basic ethics on how to behave properly and comport yourselves, just basic etiquette. The list I'm about to give you, it's not exclusive, it's not exhaustive, but it's enough to help you raise children that you can take out to places. It's enough to help you raise children that you can be sure that they'll behave in a proper manner if you're not present. Now, the first thing you need to know as an African is that when somebody gives you something, for example, they give you a plate of food, they offer you a drink or something, if you want to drink it, you say, yes, please. And so, Rafa, would you like a piece of cake? Yes, please, I'd like a piece of cake. And bring some juice along with it. If they offer you something and you don't want it, you say, no, thank you. No, I don't want it. Thank you for offering anyway. That's what no thank you means. Okay? So would you like a piece of cake? You're like, no thank you. I don't want a piece of cake. Probably because I've eaten, probably because I don't want sugary things. I'm watching my weight, I'm watching whatever. Okay, you might go on to explain, but always say no thank you. This, that. That's how to go about it. The next thing that you need to know to behave properly as an African child is that you get up from a seat. You get up from a seat when there is a pregnant woman around. You get up from a seat when there is an elderly person around. You get up from a seat when there is a physically challenged person around. The reason being that old people are like children. They're weak, their bones, their joints are shaking and all of that. So you need to really not stress them up. That's the reason why if you come to Cameroon, my home country, and you pay bills or go to an administrative office or places like that, they always give priority to old people, to pregnant people, and to disabled people, because old people are tired. Okay, they cannot withstand standing for long and things like that. You need to move and make room for them. Pregnant women are at a stage of they're always tired and stressed out. Okay, it's like a permanent stage of being sick. So you need to be very careful. You need to care for them, and they always serve them first. They always come first. Don't be like, oh, why is she being served and why I've been here before? No, you have to make room for those people. And then the reason why you make room for disabled people is because these people with disabilities, they walk with crutches, they walk with these cars that roll, they walk with trolleys and things like that. They're disabled, and it's unfair for you to expect that they should go through the same protocol as you. Okay, these people are disabled, and you're saying, am I the one who put them on a wheelchair? Am I the one? No. People who get disabled, sometimes they were walking and they were healthy like you and I, but maybe an accident happened or something happened bad and they found themselves on a wheelchair. So you need to show some respect for the fact that they're not able to do things as fast or as easily as you can do it. So you give them that privilege. You know, it's fairness. It's fairness. That's it. It's being fair, because you cannot expect them to play with the same rules as you. Everybody is standing for 4 hours. They should also stand for 4 hours. And you should understand that disaster might strike anytime, and it might be you on a wheelchair tomorrow. You're like, God forbid, God forbid. It's the same thing. Ask anybody with crutches or a wheelchair or things like that. They'll tell you that they never imagined that their life will end up on a wheelchair or in crutches and things like that. So you need to show some respect for them, because all of these bad things that happen to people is not because they're witches and wizards. It's just because life happens to you sometimes, and so you need to show some respect for them. The next proper mannerism and the next ethics you need to learn, especially if you're an African or you're a foreigner coming to an African country. The next mannerism you need to learn, the next proper etiquette you need to learn is that you don't stretch your hand at an elderly person. It's not done. It's not done. And so how do I greet an elderly person? You greet them and say, "Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma. Good afternoon, grandma. Good afternoon, whatever. Good morning. Good evening." You don't stretch your hands. It becomes their privilege now to stretch forth their hands towards you. You greet them with two hands. Okay, you greet them with two hands and you wait for them to stretch their hand before you give your hands, and you greet them with two hands. You don't be greeting people like that. It's disrespectful. Okay, it's very disrespectful. You're like, where is this kind of laws coming from? It's Africa. It's just proper behavior. You now greet people with two hands, and you sometimes you greet them with a little bow or a little nod of your head and things like that. It's a sign of respect. Okay, you greet them that way and you don't stretch forth your hands. You say, "Good evening, ma. Good evening, sir. Good afternoon, grandma. Good morning, grandpa," and things like that. And you wait for them to stretch forth their hands. They will either decide to stretch forth their hands or give you a hug. And that brings us to the next point. How do you hug an elderly person in Africa? How do you hug an elderly person in Africa? That two ways to hug people. There's the hug that you hug over their shoulders, and then there's a hug that you hug under their shoulders. In Africa, you don't hug an elderly person over their shoulders. Even if you're taller than them. Okay, even if you're tall and you could just tower over them, you don't do that. You stoop low and you hug them from under. They now pat your shoulders and it's a sign of respect. You don't be overshadowing them. It's not done. Okay, that's a way to hug an elderly person. If the person is bigger than you, that's a way to hug them. That's a way to hug them. If they offer you an embrace, it's a way to hug them. It doesn't matter how big you are, how tall you are, you go under. You don't hug them from on top of their shoulders. You go under instead and they hug you. You know, that the ones whose shoulders come on top of yours. So that's like the protocol, because all of these small nuances are very, very important. I've seen girls that they go to pay your bride price, or they go to, do something in your family, or you visit your in-laws and things like that, and you just annoy people, and you don't even know why they got annoyed, because you don't know all of this protocol. You now went there, and you have nails on your fingers like Cardi B, and you have all of these luxurious eyelashes, and now you're stretching your hand and just stretching your hand and patting people on their shoulders and greeting adults. You don't do that. It's not allowed. You don't do it. You don't do it. People are going to read it as disrespect. They're going to figure out that it's been disrespectful. Okay? The next thing you need to know about proper mannerism, if you're in an African setting, is that you need to understand that children are to be seen and not to be heard. Children are to be seen and not to be heard. If you're a child, if there are parents around, I don't care if you're 30 years old, I don't care if you're 45, if you're a child, you shut your mouth and you don't put your mouth in adult conversation. I know that it's easy to understand it in the sense that if a young child like a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old and all of that, you think that, okay, they're supposed not to interject into adult conversations, but even for a person of 30-something years old, you have to not put your mouth in adult conversations. Sometimes, even at dining tables and things like that, and banquets and things like that, you might be on the table eating with all of these adults and eating with all of these mature people, and they might ask your opinion about something, and just like, "Oh, what do you think?" Say what you think as briefly as possible. Don't be running your mouth and saying that I thought that this and that, and I felt that this person did this wrong. Most of the times they ask your opinion not because they even need your opinion. They ask your opinion just so that you participate in the conversation and it doesn't look like you're isolated from the conversation. They don't need your opinion. So don't be running your mouth. Whatever they ask you, or they ask you for an opinion on something, just say it, and say it as briefly as possible and continue eating. Don't run your mouth when adults are around. You're going to have issues. The next thing you need to learn, it's about sitting. It's about sitting. That's the next thing you need to learn. In Africa, or in an African setting, when you get into somebody's house, somebody's office, somebody's whatever, even if they invited you, do not sit until they show you where to sit. Rafa, what in God's name? What? Yeah. Do not sit down until they show you where to sit. The reason being that in some African homes, grandma has a particular chair. The father and the mother of the home have a particular chair. And grandpa has a particular chair that he sits on because he wants to rock his back and all of that. His joints are paining. You might be tempted to sit on a seat, and then when the owner of that seat comes, you'll be asked to stand up. Okay, because that's grandma's chair, and that's daddy's chair, and that's where mommy usually sits. Don't assume that all chairs are for everybody. When you get into a home or even someone's office, and they already know that you're coming, you have an appointment, you greet them and say, good afternoon, I'm this and this person, or good morning, I'm this and this person, and you wait for them to tell you to sit. And generally they'll generally say sit, and then they'll show you a hand gesture to show you where to sit. That's when you sit down. It's very, very important to understand this etiquette, because even at banquets, the particular sitting positions, like the father of the house sits at the head of the table, the mother of the house sits, I think, on the left side or on the right side, just next to the father. Don't assume that, oh, I want to sit here because I really want to escape easily. I might need to make a phone call too. So you choose a sitting position for your comfort, and then somebody comes around and says, you cannot sit here, please excuse me, you have to wake up and sit here, and all of that. It's embarrassing. So don't embarrass yourself, and just be careful. Allow for people to show you where to sit. It's very, very important protocol, especially in African homes. Because you might come into your home and just sit somewhere. Now you're relaxing and stretching your legs and things like that. And grandma comes, and this woman is just a woman who is dedicated to traditional stuff and just basic African respect and things like that. She's going to whip you her cane and tell you to get off her chair and things like that. So you need to be very, very careful. You don't want to annoy somebody's grandfather, annoy somebody's mom or dad. So you need to be careful. All chairs in African homes are not meant for everybody. The last thing I want to share is about opening bags. Okay, about opening bags. It's an African thing. You don't be touching people's bags carelessly. I don't care if it's your mother's bag, your father's bag, your cousin's bag. If it's an elderly person's bag, you don't open it. Now, this is a lesson that my aunt taught me. She was like, you don't open female bags, and you don't open nobody's bag, by the way. If somebody sends you to their bag to collect, say, a pen, a book, their wallet or something, ask them carefully where you want them to go. They'll tell you, go to the outer pocket, open the first pocket and get into this. If you go to that outer pocket and you don't see the wallet, you close the outer pocket and tell them that I've not seen the wallet in the outer pocket, for them to direct you to the inner pocket. I'm telling you the truth. Don't be opening people's bags because you're going to see things that you probably did not want to see. African women, I'm talking about real traditional women in rural areas, move around with different kinds of things. They move around alakata pepe, they move around with bitter cola. If you're out of Africa, especially not from Cameroon, you might not understand what I'm talking about. They move around with different kinds of spices and things, and incense and things, and just different kinds of things that if you don't know them, you might think is voodoo or juju. So you need to be careful. Don't be opening people's bags. If they don't send you to the pocket, don't go there. If they send you there and you go and you don't see what you wanted, zip it closed and then tell them that you've not seen what you were looking for. That way they can direct you again, or just bring the bag to them for them to open it themselves and figure out what they want. Okay, so it's very, very disrespectful. You grab an elderly person's bag and you're like, what did you bring for me? And you're already opening their bag. It's crazy. You don't do that. You don't do that. You're going to be, I'm telling you the truth, bad eyes are going to look at you. They're going to be like, where is this one from? Okay? So you need to be very, very careful. This list, like I always say, it's not exhaustive. I cannot teach you everything about proper etiquette in Africa, but the few things I just mentioned might be very just enough to help guide you through life. And if you did not get it properly, the first thing is that you have to learn how to say yes please. If you're offered something and you want it, you say yes and please. And if you're offered something and you don't want the thing, you say no, but you add thank you to it. You say no, thank you. You're thanking them for offering at least. Okay? And you need to learn how to get up, offer your seat, or move away when there's a pregnant woman around, when there is an elderly person or someone who is disabled. Okay, the next thing you need to know is that you don't stretch your hands at elderly people. You greet them with your hands held to yourself and you wait for them to stretch their hands towards you. And then when they stretch their hands, you stretch back your hands. Most often with two hands. You don't be greeting people like that. Okay, it's just disrespectful. So the next thing is also hugging. You might want to greet an elderly person and they're like, oh, don't be greeting me like a stranger, come give me a hug and all of that. It doesn't matter how tall you are, you have to go under their armpits or their shoulders. You don't hug an elderly person from on top. It's disrespectful. It's so disrespectful. I'm telling you the truth. Somebody might get annoyed over it and you don't even know what you've done. Okay? You're like, what? I just hugged grandma. I just hugged auntie. I just hugged uncle. And they're like, this is very disrespectful, child. So you need to know that. The next thing is that children are to be seen and not to be heard. Sometimes a big person might ask for your opinion about things, but it doesn't want to hear your opinion. So just say a few words and let it be. Don't forcefully enter into conversations and everything that's saying you're putting your mouth in when adults are around. You don't do that. You're going to be seen as very disrespectful. The next thing is that your sitting positions. Every chair in a house is not, so I'm just doing like a recapitulation. Every chair in an African home is not meant for everybody. So when you get to homes or you get to offices or get to places, ask, where do I sit? Even if you see so many chairs, just ask like, where do I sit? Or if they say sit down, they'll point to a chair and things like that. And then the last thing I just said was that you don't be opening people's bags, because you might see things that you do not want to see. Those are the lessons. Put them in practice in your day-to-day life. If you've not understood, well, I'm hoping that you were jotting down some things. If you were not jotting, I hope that even if all of it does not stick in your head, I hope that you can retain some and that it can help you correct your behavior, especially when you're dealing with elderly people, without which you're going to be seen as a very disrespectful person, and you're being disrespectful without even knowing that you're being disrespectful. So those are the lessons. Put them into practice and hopefully your behavior will be different and elderly people will feel that you're respectful and you learn to be accepted more in an African society. My name is Rafa Godlove. My job is to teach you all of these life lessons so that you kind of become a better person. Until next time, it's bye-bye from me.